There we go. Gotta unmute. Tech difficulties. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Final Assault VR Master League. My name is NightFiree with 2 E's. I will be joined shortly by my co-caster, SadlyItsBradley. He is currently en route to the matchup. And what we have coming up is Heathen versus Gnuman. These Week 1 matchups, not 100% sure what to expect out of them. Just based off of what I've seen and who I've played against so far, I'm putting my money on to Heathen. I know he is a dedicated player to Final Assault, so I expect him to put out some good strats here today. I'm unsure about Gnuman and where he lies in the skill range. I'm sure Brad could probably give us a better idea, but we don't quite have his in-depth knowledge of the community quite yet. He'll be here shortly, though, like I said. We're going to be coming out onto Sternberg for map number 1. The set map list for the week is Sternberg, Operation Stronghold, and Kleinstadt. Sternberg, a 2-lane map, so should be interesting kind of start to see how these guys go at each other. Still waiting on Gnuman to hop into the lobby, and then we'll dip on over to that lobby scene and get ready to dive into the game. Until then, we'll just kind of putz around and hang out. Thank you guys for joining. This is week 1. Some introductory scene setup we got going here, and it's going to get pretty solid. We're going to have pretty consistent casting with pretty consistent layovers. We're going to be using this channel mostly, so if you haven't already, make sure you hit the follow button up on the Twitch channel. Also, go follow the VR Master League Twitter, the Final Assault VR Master League Twitter. I think it's in Discord, but I'll give you the links here in a second. Let me just scoop them up. Yeah, FA Assault link in the chat. It's a good thing I'm here. We're covering for Brad. Look, he's sad. Hopefully the emergency doesn't make him sad. We'll have him shortly. We can definitely handle it alone here. No big deal. Just got to get everybody in the lobies. Gnuman should be in now. He's fired up the game. Should be popping in shortly. And once he's in the lobby, you can hear the game there. We'll pop on in. Showing right now, Heathen has selected Nichols' division. Gnuman, Simon's division. Like I said, we'll be going on to Sternberg. It is a 2-lane map, as you can see. Has your 3 standard drop points on the map. That one in the north, a little bit isolated. Not really standard lane presence there, but if you can get some supply trucks up there, you can get kind of you can kind of backdoor that lane pretty strong. So we'll see what kind of strats these guys end up using. Have to wait for both squads or both players to ready up. Heathen to put his headset on, and we should be diving into map 1 of Heathen versus Gnuman. Should be good. I'm excited. I don't know what to expect. Like we said, this week 1 stuff. You know. There we go. Both teams readied up. Both players, rather. Excuse me, readied up. And we are underway on to Sternberg. Yeah, a little highlight on the matchup. We have Nichols versus Simmons. Nichols, I believe, is the American Air, and Simmons is the American Land, American troop support. So we'll see how these two end up duking it out. once he gets to that tier 3, those planes are hard to deal with. So I'm not sure how Gnuman will counter that. He only has that that one anti-artillery truck that he can end up pulling out, that tier 3 unit. You can already see some early planes coming out. He wants to get lane control with that plane strafing. And a counter coming in from Heathen. I wonder if the colors are... Gosh, I'm so confused. I think Heathen's on the right and Gnuman is on the left, despite... Yeah, let's go this way. Hold on. We'll fix it. We'll get the camera on the right side. We'll just always be on this side of the action. Anyway, a little micro going here, and you can see Heathen leading back Gnuman's plane into his anti-air. Pretty standard strategy. You have to be cautious of that. If you're going to send your planes out to battle, you got to make sure you're watching them. You can see he just kind of got caught up in managing his lanes and getting out some troop presence. And surprisingly, being yeah, I was getting confused earlier. I was wondering why there weren't more planes coming out from blue, because Gnuman is the troop-focused player. We should be getting. I'm not sure actually what the timing is on drops. But that first drop should be coming out relatively soon. Heathen starting to take control of the air, prepping for that phase where they start to bring in those tier 4 plane units. And if you just let, I don't know, this could get risky for Gnuman. He's already losing that front tower, and if he lets Heathen take air control and then maintain the air control, it's gonna get real bad as soon as he starts to bring out his heavier plane units. Gnuman needs to focus now on getting some anti-air units out, taking control of these lanes again. He needs to put some more troop units down. And you can see there's one rolling out now onto that north lane. That's where he needs the most support. Sending out a few tank units to take control of the north. We're looking at now, and this could be a very fast round for Gnuman at the rate this is going. Heathen has full control of both lanes. He has complete control of all 3 drops. And Gnuman has lost his front tower already. And here, look at this. Moving in the artillery to this high ground. This is going to be devastating to this lane. He's got to send out some units. He's got to take control of this high ground again, or he's going to be... Yeah, it's just going to keep going downhill for him here. And now I just think it's too late to try and get out those bazooka units. You can see he's trying to deploy more unit trucks. He should have had these out at the start of the round instead of so late. Finally put out some artillery. They've pushed back that little hold onto that ledge, but he needs to regain control of that. He needs to put out a few tanks, get a few artillery up here, and have full control again. But it is an interesting thing to note of how much armor and artillery Heathen has out right now. Being so plane focused, we now do finally start to see some of those tier 4 units come out. The standard strategy of keeping your troop transport back at your base, just dropping in units. He's going to have serious lane control here. But he's given Gnuman some time. Gnuman has gotten out a few troop trucks now. He's finally starting to roll out some anti-air. He may be able to start pushing back just a little bit here, but I just think it's going to be because Heathen is tearing up and he's putting out some heavier units. See if he can sort of save that cascade. And you can see now those torpedo planes, I mean, missile planes, excuse me. They might as well, they look like torpedoes. Missile planes. And this is going to be bad news for his line here. He's trying to get some air out. He's trying, because that's one of the best counters to these planes is a fighter plane. Tier 1 fighter. Does serious work against those missile planes, so. See, he's got a couple of those hovering over his base now, just making sure he can guard his troop trucks. We got the anti-air as far out as it can go, and you can see Gnuman trying to micromanage his air units around his available anti-air. He's starting to take back control just a little bit. And it's turning into a bit of a battle of lane presence and who has the stronger troops. Here comes an AoE artillery attack onto Gnuman's trucks. He gets a couple out of the way, but these ones are getting peppered, and he's lost 2 there. Managed to move 3 out. Some tanks moving up into the south lane, though, starting to hammer these troop trucks. Also got an artillery nicely positioned behind that bunker, and now the push coming in from Heathen. Gnuman had his chance to sort of regroup and regather, and I don't know if he has enough anti-air to even move out of his base yet. There goes that. That was the first P-38 that Heathen had spawned. Here comes the second, fully HP'd up, and one AA down. The other AA trying to do work to it, but in quick succession, just like that, he no longer has any anti-air to defend his forward troop trucks. All he has is this back AA that just doesn't do enough. It doesn't have enough range, especially for those missile planes, and I think this is it for Gnuman. He's completely lost his lane presence. He's trying to get troop tucks out now, and he's trying to tuck them as close as he can to that anti-air. But I don't know if that's going to be working out very well. You can see now we've got 2 troop transports, tier 4 planes dropping in units onto this north lane, moving in a few tanks as well, and yeah, it is not looking good. A ton of lane presence, a ton of troops down this lane. Trying to reinforce it with some artillery. The right move here would be to get some more artillery, like Heathen had earlier up onto this ledge, to be firing down onto these turrets. But he's so focused on, not sure what. He's really getting over aggressive, I think, with his plane units. He's lost a ton of his fighters. He no longer has any more of those missile planes. He is going to maintain control of all of these drops as he has throughout the entirety of the game, so he will have that income. And now here comes an artillery strike onto the only few units that Gnuman has. Can he get them out in time? And it was a predicted strike, a nicely led one. Catches out 2 and leaves only 1 truck left alive. There's the artillery now up on the hilltop again, peppering those towers. I think Heathen has pretty strong control of this. You can see Heathen hasn't even looked back at his spawn in quite some time. He's been super focused on just maintaining this forward push, spawning in tanks, putting them up onto these towers. He knows he has the lane presence with those tier 4 planes dropping in units in the backside, and I think this is going to be map 1 to Heathen. There it is. He needs to get... But I think Heathen now is sort of starting to relax just a little bit. And this does happen. It's hard to keep the pressure on 24/7. So he's given Gnuman a little bit of more breathing room, losing 2 fighters there to the micro, allowing them to fly over the anti-air. And I think he needs to deal with anti-air and then just go heavy into this base. See what he decides to do as he starts to lose control of the south. Spawning in a ton of tank units to reinforce his troops in the north. And he's going to put a heavy push up here. Gnuman trying to answer back by getting some troop trucks out, but he's not putting them down the right lanes, and those missile planes just taking out any units that come out so quickly. Here comes the tank push. Heathen trying to get some fire up onto that base. He has an opportunity now to take out that anti-air and allow his planes to also do some work onto that base, but these tanks are peppering the base right now. A tier 4 bomber, a last-ditch effort from Gnuman coming out here. Will it land onto these trucks in time? The tanks are still alive, half HP, another strafe, and they'd be done. And Gnuman hanging on by a thread. Just a sliver of HP, and I think this is going to be map 1 to Heathen. One more tank shot, and here's 4 more tanks coming in, and that is map 1. Gnuman tried to hang on, extending the map time to 11 minutes, but ultimately Heathen with the dominating performance there. Most destroyed unit fighter on both sides. That's interesting considering Gnuman was focused on troops. I think we are now also joined by the illustrious SadlyItsBradley. SadlyItsBradley, how are you, bud? Is he here? Thought I heard him.
Hello?
There he is. He's joined us.
I got it. All right, I'm doing good. How about you?
Excellent. We just watched a solid round 1 from Heathen. A nice performance with that, with those aerial units, those missile planes just doing work. What are your thoughts on those? How do you counter those?
With the P-38?
Yeah.
Definitely fighters. I think mixing, usually baiting with ground AA and then a couple fighters hovering above usually scares most P-38 proficient people, because usually it's already kind of like a risk for people to want to go into ground AA, especially 1 or 2 of them. But when you have fighters hovering above them, most people are like, well, I'm going to lose a P-38 only killing a $14 unit. So that's usually the best strategy,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay. We did see the most destroyed unit on both sides was fighter, so I think that's what Gnuman was trying to do.
Yeah, I think the issue especially is generally Simmons is just, like, in my opinion, a very weak, just super weak in general, but even more weak against Nichols, because, I mean, it relies heavily on infantry, and then, like, the infantry is trying to keep the lane pushed out so that Gnuman can basically spawn out those heavy bombers at one point, to the point where you should be able to push onto the base. But I mean, even if you have the heavy bombers out, I mean, it's so cheap for Nichols to just create a huge swarm of fighters to defend. So I just don't think Simmons is a good matchup in general against any of Heathen's top play divisions.
Having some tech difficulties here. Gonna restart my game. Just give me 1 second. Suppose you could start the lobby as well.
Yeah, I can try that.
We'll be moving on to map number 2, which is Operation Stronghold. What are your thoughts on that map, Brad? The crossing lanes throws me off a little bit.
So, I like it a lot. I don't like it playing. I don't like playing it as ground divisions at all. For whatever reason, I just really enjoy taking over the air and then taking out the side bases, AA, and then complete air dominance from that point on. But from the ground, I don't like it at all. I think it's a really cool map because there's so many different ways you can go about handling. I've chose many times to just skip the side bases and go straight forward, middle, or I would only attack one base and ignore my base, or ignore their base, and just, like, there's so many ways to go about the map. And due to the fact that it is a large map, it trips a lot of players up, because these larger maps, it's hard to focus on all the areas at once, so you can do a lot more sneaky stuff on this map.
Oh, I was thinking of, yeah, Operation Stronghold is the one with the auxiliary bases on the north and south.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I've seen some players not utilize those auxiliary bases, and they seem really strong because you basically get a straight line right down into their base tower.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, the ground AA, the base AA, I should say, is actually a lot better positioned on this map for players that are anti-air, I guess you could say, or ground. So they can just keep sending their ground units through that side and easily just not worry about the early presence of air, and including infantry. If they even send infantry down the middle lane, closer to their side base, the AA will, for the most part, be able to attack any fighters that try to push the lane with strays, unless you have a very certain spot of that lane being pushed by the fighter. But it's really annoying, for sure.
Gnuman switching it up after not finding much success with the troop focus. He's now switched over to a more tank-focused class. He'll be trying to bring out some more heavy artillery units, and eventually those. Gosh, what are those? What's their tier 4 artillery? Yeah, the Calliopes. Those things are dangerous.
Oh yeah, they are definitely what we were talking about earlier. I do have trouble playing ground divisions on this map. I just, for whatever reason. But what's really cool is because you have all the ways to go across the map as a ground unit. If you take that enemy side base, you have another way to send ground units, or you can just send it right down to your right side base, and then you send enough Calliopes and just rush the base. It's kind of like an old classic GG bomber strat where you can just bar the base with a ton of artillery, and it's a kind of interesting thing to do.
Well, there's a lot of line of sight and interesting micro you can do with those Calliopes to take out some of these turrets if you're positioned correctly. So we'll see how he ends up utilizing them. We're already seeing some artillery placement. I feel like maybe someone's forgotten that this auxiliary base is the enemies over here, because he sent one of his fighters out over there and instantly got taken down. You noting that AA is right there, it's definitely going to make it hard to sort of have any air presence.
Yeah, just pretty much I literally cannot put fighters on that side of the map. That's the first thing I like. I'm like, okay, which side's my base and which side's their side base? And I'm like, all right, no-go zone right here.
Yeah.
I also want to comment on, since Heathen is playing Nichols, and that's a character I really like to critique heavily. We see in the first game, I saw he was prioritizing armor pretty early, which is pretty interesting. Not really something I do very often, especially on a map like this. But also another thing he does is he's spawning troop trucks early, which I find very bizarre, because I usually like to go straight with the troop plane grinds eventually in the game. And even if I have troop trucks surviving early on, and they do a little bit more pressure, especially on this side he is pressuring on, if I ever get the limit with the troop planes and the troop trucks still exist, then they will eventually spawn, and my troop plane may not get the stronger units out due to that troop limit.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned early that just wasn't really aware to me right away is that these different classes have the cost of units differs as well. So for Heathen, spawning in plane units is cheaper, I presume, than it would be for Gnuman, whereas Gnuman can spam tanks at $6 instead of $8.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's like I think $8 for fighters for Gnuman. Generally, just fighters are a lot weaker on this now due to the side ground AA. There's a lot more places where, Jesus, a P-38 is already going.
Yeah.
Doing stuff. See, this is what I like to see. Like, I don't want to spend money on early armor or whatever, especially against the Bowman. I want to see P-38s out as soon as possible against the armor division. But yeah, generally, just getting fighters out early is just not, like, too many is just kind of useless, because they'll get baited into two different locations, whereas usually players try to bait enemy fighters into their home base, but now there's like there's like a whole side of the map that you gotta make sure your fighters don't go near.
I was just about to say, I'm sure that the micro is a bit more extensive here with the plane units because of where you can go. You have those extra options. And I do remember when I played against you, and you were playing this class, I felt like I had that early game advantage, and it now is clear to me it's because you were stacking up your later tier units. You didn't want to send out any tier 2 tanks or tier 2 artillery. You wanted to spend and wait until you could get that tier 3 unlocked, and that is when I had the most trouble. And now those P-38s are out. You can't hide from them. You have this one flying around on the right outside of the auxiliary base, just taking out any units that come spawning in. And
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, Heathen is a known player. He likes playing Nichols. He likes playing Ritter. He likes playing these air superiority people. But if you are against a player you never played before, I do highly value the surprise factor of like what character, like because you don't know exactly what character the enemy's playing until you start seeing these special units for their division. So if I don't wait on the P38 as my first unit, then players will just usually they'll spawn tanks, they'll spawn all these ground units. They'll like spend zero time on AA or fighters, and then I can like send out my P38 and they'll be like, oh crap, this player is playing Nichols. And it's pretty much already too late because they don't know what to do at that point. So that's why I highly value the going straight for the early high tier units as Nichols, not spawning any troop planes until after the P38s, because then you can do all this stuff freely.
Yeah, and he is. I didn't even think about this. He has the ability to use those tier 4 troop planes and put them down in this auxiliary base. So he's going to be sending a ton of units straight into this tower on the south side here.
Yeah, there's pretty much nothing Gnuman can. Well, there is one way that you can actually get to these troop planes, despite the fact I did say the side base AA is actually better than the home base AA, purely because, like, I mean, you can see there's two AA. I mean, I guess really three all bunched up in one area. But there is actually a way. If you are playing air enough, you'll realize there is a range at which the base AA can go, and you can actually you can micro fighters outside the map range a little bit to where the AAs will not get shot. They'll not get shot at by the AAs, and they can just take out the troop planes like a scum lord.
I have had that happen to me, and it's very infuriating because you can really, when you're fighting against a player that's using so many plane units like this, it's I guess maybe I rely on it too much, you know? Like, it's really one of, like, I micro around that AA so heavily, and then to see, you know, those P38s just flying in the back, coming in, shooting my AA, maybe getting hit a few times, and then flying away, it's so infuriating.
Oh, yeah, I was playing against Photo the other day, and I actually did the wrap around to his side base, dodging all the ground AA. They didn't even get a chance to lock on, just I was so out of bounds of the map, and he had all these troop trucks in his auxiliary base. I was able to just take a lot of them with the P38. And I watched the VOD. He wouldn't have actually noticed if I didn't accidentally leave a fighter just kind of swimming around that side base. So I think it's a very broken thing, I think, maybe, but it's pretty fun. And it can be definitely punished if players notice. They'll start putting more ground AA defenses on the corner that base AA doesn't reach and stuff like that.
So you can micro away from bombers. I was taught that yesterday. Can you micro away from the P38s like Gnuman is trying to do here, where he sent his AA into a loop patrol there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely makes it harder for even, like, I'll miss stuff if people send their stuff in loots. Especially, like, the issue, though, is it used to be harder when people did just complete circles. I was like, oh, I'm going to miss a lot of these. But then I started learning, like, to, you know, control my P38s better. So, and then other players did as well. So what I do is I literally just make the most sporadic shapes in the ground for my ground units to go that a player will never be able to predict where it will go next. So that's probably the P38's biggest weakness against ground. It's just drawing random shapes in the ground and hope to God that they miss. So.
Well, it looks like that strategy has sort of delayed that heavy push that Gnuman was facing onto his base. He had a couple P38s harassing his towers there for a bit. He had an artillery barrage come in there, and the troop planes, now he's got two over there in that auxiliary base, so his lane presence really amping up here. Is this the south side or north side? I can never tell. I always forget.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But something I do want to point out, so both players are playing U.S. divisions, so their base attack are both the artillery barrage. So small difference between the artillery barrage and the V2 rocket from the Germans is the V2 rocket actually the AOE is a giant cylinder more than a a large AoE on the ground. So if you actually V2 bomb that side base and get both troop planes in the blast, they're both guaranteed to go down. Whereas if you're a U.S. division, you have artillery barrage, you only have like I think it's like a 20% chance that a troop plane will go down from those hits. So that's another little issue for Gnuman, is the fact that he does not have that free V2 to take out swarm fighters or these swarms of troop planes on these side bases. So that just makes it a little bit more difficult to him.
Another artillery strike coming in. It looks like Gnuman able to get most of his units out of the way. Is that a back-to-back artillery strike? Or is that a follow-up from Gnuman? Yeah, it is a back-to-back artillery strike. Looks like Heathen timed that one up just right. He must have, right? He threw that out, then grabbed the cash, and then dropped another.
Yep, definitely. I mean, that's a very important thing when you're a newer player learning the game, is a lot of players will just, they'll grab the crate when they're already at full money, and then they end up getting actually no bonus gold from that crate. So a good way to spam that money is just going straight for the double artillery barrage. And he timed it well with the tanks rolling in too, so this was kind of the perfect situation for Heathen.
Pushing in hard in that lane. No towers available now, and those troop transports still dropping in units. Can you... You're talking you could throw missiles at them. Can you micro your troop planes away from that missile?
Oh yeah,
or are
they're
not set on their paths, right?
Right. You actually set their paths,
okay.
just like any other planes, and then you set the drop zone of where the troops land. So, I mean, yeah, you definitely want to actually, because most players, when they hear that that alarm, they focus on their ground units and sending them away. But if you're against a V2 bomber, you're probably sending away your planes as well.
And it looks like that will be map number 2 to Heathen. 2-0 so far in the series. He has won the series officially, but we always play out the third map over here at the Master League. And so we'll see how this third one shakes up. If you were Gnuman, what do you do differently here to sort of, I don't know, answer back against this gosh, I keep forgetting her name. Against the P-38s and the air units.
I mean, I would just go straight for an air division if possible, because Heathen, I mean, he literally plays air divisions all the time, and the only time I think he loses the most is when he plays against other players that also do air divisions, because he's more used to all the most players. I think a high percentage of the player base plays mostly these ground divisions, so it allows players like me and Heathen to sort of know what to do in a lot of situations. But when we play against another air division player, we're just like, okay, we gotta actually think a little bit more. So
I created a lobby. I don't know if you did as well.
I'm joining yours. It's fine.
Okay, excellent. We should be into map number 3 pretty quick here. I don't think we're going to have much time between. Real quick, your thoughts on Kleinstadt as we dive in to the third map?
I think we're going to see... I think we're going to see a lot of tanks in the mid, pretty much, and that's it. A lot of tanks, a lot of walking Stukas all over the mid. But the actual map itself, I like it. As a Nichols player, I think it's also a really good map for Nichols, despite being small. Or as a player who likes to upgrade early, it's kind of scary to upgrade early, because the smaller maps, they will usually get their units to you faster, and which is fine. I'll maybe put a defensive artillery in that strat, but I think the map's pretty okay. I don't like the ground versus ground divisions on this map, so I think this will be a lot more of an interesting game to watch due to the fact that we're going air versus tank right here.
Little fun no audio bug going on our end. So apologies if you don't hear any artillery shots going and it's just me and Brad, but that's how it's got to be sometimes. Hopefully not when when we get the new spectator bells and whistles. And like you were saying, here's the tank units out early. A quick trade there on the south, and
pretty interesting. I don't see wolf players try to fight for the air very often, especially this early in the game. So this is kind of a shock for me. I guess Heathen, despite the fact that he is playing the German tank division, he still has all his tricks and up his sleeves from his just tons of game time from the air division. So he can't help but build a lot of planes to fight whatever Gnuman is planning on.
The old habits die hard.
Yeah, exactly. And he probably won't buy any more fighters now that Gnuman has 3, as players have suggested in the Twitch chat. It just costs way too much for Wolf to even bother going air versus air. But we do see the first walking Stuka in the middle. You can keep firing while moving, so it's going to be a very difficult time for these tanks on the ground in lane. But look at those Henschels already out, so that's going to be a problem for the Stukas pretty soon here.
Yeah, Heathen with a lot of micro on those units, sending them around into those wacky patterns, it seems, but also just kind of keeping them out on the edge just to sort of launch those rockets in. And what's the answer from Gnuman to this? He started to put out some troop chucks, trying to get a little bit more lane presence.
So what's cool, I just saw, even though I said like Heathen probably doesn't want to spend much money on his planes, it's to the fact that they're $8 for him.
Yeah.
He's only really targeting the Henschels with his fighters right now. So if one of his fighters take out the Henschels and only one dies, that is a $3 net worth for him, because the Henschels are $11 for Ritter. So that's why you only see him going straight for the Henschels when they come out, and that's actually going to cripple Gnuman very hard, because I mean Heathen is a ground focused character. He's going to keep sending out these walking Stukas and maybe later the Tiger tanks that will get easily shot down by any Henschel. So this is probably the perfect strategy for Heathen to deal with this this division.
Yeah, he's got 3 of them out now. What are they called? Stukas? Walking. What are you calling them? The ones that the missile launchers, artillery.
Yeah, the walking Stukas.
Okay.
They're very cheap, $15 each. They're similar to the Calliope, just not as great of range and not as great as armor or damage, but they are good in numbers and they're cheap, so you can definitely have them in numbers.
You can see that, man, Gnuman has a ton of air units out here, and he is slowly picking away at those walking Stukas. Finally, that last one that's alive is getting pulled back a little bit. And a couple fighters coming out.
Yeah, you can see Gnuman took the perfect opportunity to send out a motorbike that was sort of at the AA unit that was on the ground, just taking out little pot shots here and there of all their fighters. You can see they're all very low health because they weren't microed away soon enough. But the motorbike did actually take out the AA, which is a great way to deal with ground AA.
Got a lot of air battling going on right here. Tons of air macro on both sides. Gnuman spamming quickly to move his fighters in and out over that airdrop side, trying to maintain control of it. And now I think he needs to get more control of that land. Sending out some artillery units. He's going to try and take control of that airdrop. What are the airdrops? Are the airdrops on a timer?
They can spawn between 2 to 6 minutes based on RNG timers set each time they spawn.
Okay. I don't think we've had one come in yet. I haven't had game audio, so I'm unsure if they have dropped one in. But I don't think I've seen one come in yet.
I don't think I've seen one either yet.
And so the answer to these walking Stukas on Gnuman's side seems to be he's trying to throw out a ton of those light units, sort of flinging them out at those Stukas, and then also maintaining those. What are they called? Those sniper planes?
Yeah, they're called the Henschels.
Is that what people are referring to when they refer to the sniper planes? Do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
I do think they have pretty ridiculous range, actually, especially more recently. I've felt that I've seen players actually snipe troop trucks from without taking any damage from base artillery, despite the fact that the troop trucks were literally stationed next to base artillery. So I think the sniper plane is a very good definition for them.
We've had a pretty good battle so far. 5.5 minutes in, almost a turret apiece on each side. Actually, Yeah, we're nearly tied on turrets. If this turret goes down for Gnuman, or sorry, for Heathen here on the south, where he's got all this extra lane presence, and it looks like it is going to happen. Heathen can't. Gosh, I keep getting switched up on the colors. Gnuman can get the advantage here if he keeps pressing. He can get that forward-facing turret in the center, take control of the high ground. That high ground is huge on this map.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're probably gonna see pretty soon here. We're seeing a couple Tiger tanks, the highest unit for Wolf Division. It'll take a lot more than a few henchels to take that thing out. So I mean, you can see they're trying to poke them, but they're not going to do too much, especially unless they have tanks presence and other presence slowly taking them out. Round AA plays very well defensively to take out any henchels that do get close enough, and it's just distracting Gnuman as well because there's a middle Tiger tank that if microed can go straight through the middle and the right side to push the lane even further and take out anything that stands in its way.
I was wondering if Heathen was going to finally stop Gnuman from getting this free tower in the center, and he does move one of those tanks up and makes quick work of this little push that was happening up in the high ground. He has no AA up here, though, so these sniper planes really starting to pepper that tank, but like you're saying, they just do so little damage, even if they are slamming into it consistently. And
yeah, I mean,
you
can go ahead.
Is there any difference in AA between classes, between American and German?
Not really. I mean, I think they're very subtle. I think the German AA just is the model is a lot harder to see on maps, but I haven't really noticed any like actual differences in terms of damage power or anything like that.
I feel like the German AA might be a little bit easier to micro as well, just because of their model. I feel like I don't know, but that might just be me. It might just again be in the head of how that model works.
I can agree with that completely for sure. I just I do wish that the because I feel like the US AA truck are so big and bulky and they're just so distinguishable, whereas the ground AA, I don't know, they look a lot like the normal German tanks to me sometimes.
Yeah, you can kind of just they don't stick out as much.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you micro away from the sniper planes? It doesn't. It seems like they pretty much
really.
Once they're on you, they laser you.
Yeah, they will basically laser you every time once they're in that actual attack run. Which is why it makes them even more of a sniper plane because you can mic them away, but they're still gonna fire, and I think it increases their range while they're being microed away for those shots. And yeah, like just right there, that seems exuberantly long of range. But look at those fighters. That's the way to do it.
Makes quick work of the Stukas. Now has control of this lane, or sorry, of the Henkels. Has control of the wing. His Stuka does go down. The Tiger there also going to start to push up, and that's quickly denied with some artillery placement. And I wonder what the appropriate response here for Gnuman is. Everything he's tried to throw at Heathen keeps getting shut down. He tries to throw the Henkels out there, and he tries to take out these Tigers and AA, but he just can't seem to get that winning push, or that winning. He doesn't have the presence there in the center of the map, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, I think a huge problem right now, especially, is this is one of the rare moments where a Wolf player has more air superiority over the air division right now. And I mean, Ritter really relies heavily on controlling the air. If there's more planes from the enemy than Ritter, then you're pretty much have no chance of coming back, in my professional opinion here.
Yeah,
I mean, we keep seeing ground AA fighters and just everything while this Tiger tank is trying. Well, Tiger tank's not actually doing right. Okay, now it's about to go do some heavy tower damage. But yeah, this is pretty scary if you're a Ritter player right now.
Did he just send it in to attack a unit? I think he did. This is a bit of a misstep on that Tiger tank. Didn't get a single shot off. Just went right into the middle of the base and died.
Yeah, it's pretty questionable for sure. I would have just put the walking Stuka to target that artillery unit if that is what he was going for there. But yeah, I definitely would have just targeted the towers with that Tiger for sure.
Gnuman now has the high ground advantage. He finally takes out that that forward turret, and now he's sort of free to maneuver around a little bit more, and position some
Yeah,
artillery into some good spots.
what's interesting about Ritter is tanks are only $7, whereas if we compare it to the U.S. Air Division, tanks are $8. So
Oh wow! So
you can have
even
a little bit. Yeah, Ritter has a
goodness.
little bit better chance to spam tanks out more than U.S. Air, despite the fact that Ritter has all its units, despite U.S. Air only having one missing. So
I don't know if you
I'm a
caught
little
that
salty about that.
a little battle for the cash there. Gnuman had an artillery unit on it right before it dropped. The Tiger came out and took it out, giving that cash drop to Heathen. And now here comes a follow-up Tiger with some anti-air to support it. I think he's just going to keep doing this formula, putting out a couple fighters, putting out some anti-air to accompany his Tiger tanks. It seems to be working. He's now cleaning off or picking off a couple of these air units. Gnuman
Yeah,
has to
that's
stay on
expensive.
that.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps losing all his henschels. I mean, not only does that allow Heathen to push forward with his ground units, but I mean, those henschels are expensive when you lose so many of them. That's why I wish we have stat screens showing how many henschels were lost during games like this, because I mean, it would definitely pile up the costs.
A little bit of a push coming out from Gnuman along this left lane, quickly getting denied by those walking Stukas. A great way to sort of deny lane presence. Consistent artillery barrage.
Yeah, I mean, he's had those troop trucks since the beginning of the game, and
Yeah.
Ritter is one of those characters where I especially like always question the perfect amount of infantry. It's not like whereas Nichols, for example, has troop planes, has strong infantry. Ritter has only the basic infantry, and I mean, this time it's working because just the perfect amount where it keeps the lane a little bit pushed out and applies more lane pressure to Heathen. But a lot of times I see, I don't think more than 4 troop trucks is good for any Ritter player, in my personal opinion.
So are the efficiency of your ground units, does that differ between what hero you pick as well?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's just the fact that like Ritter only has the basic
Right.
troop trucks, whereas
Yeah.
like other characters have different troop trucks to choose from.
For sure. And Heathen taking control of the north lane, and a heavy bomber coming in, taking out that Tiger. Doesn't get both AA though, and those are still peppering those Henkels.
Yeah,
And
it's nice to see the medium bomber. It was in very good use there.
I feel like it took a
A lot of
little
Ritter
bit for that to
players
come
don't
out.
use. Yeah, I think a lot of players when they play Ritter, they try to figure out the best uses for the medium bomber. I mean, especially a player like Gnuman. I mean, he just played Simmons earlier. Excuse me. The heavy bomber from Simmons just feels like such a better unit compared to the medium bomber. The medium bomber is like the exact same speed, but is a lot weaker. It doesn't have nearly as amount of firepower. So a lot of players when they switch from Simmons to Ritter, they question whether it's even worth spending all that money on the medium bomber. But it definitely has its uses for sure.
Do you have any micro tips for plane management as well? Is there any good, because I feel like once you lose that in the dogfight and you have and you've lost your tail, it's really hard to come back from that.
I usually like to target. I like to manually target the planes so they both attack the same unit, single unit, so that the plane goes down. Because each fighter, a full burst of a fighter takes an enemy fighter out like half health. So if you have 2 fighters attack one, that will go down. And I think even though the other fighters around that will try to defend and attack, I just don't think you should rely on auto attacking because they'll all just like kind of it'll all be like an RNG fest of which one gets the shot down first. But attacking 2 onto 1 and quickly shredding that one, and then micro them to attack the next one, and so forth is the best way to micro them. Otherwise, if you're wanting to be more defensive and make sure they don't attack any units, like let's say we were on the last map Stronghold and you just really don't want them to accidentally run into base AA, the best thing I like to do is air circles in the air so
Okay.
they cannot like, because players, if they're good enough at air, they will actually they will try to bait your planes
Yeah,
auto attack.
Pretty annoying.
Yeah, like I've done it to players. I'll see they have like a huge stack of fighters in their base, and I'll like set some 2 ground AA outside their base, and but because they're in their base, they think they're safe. But I'll just send one fighter to draw aggro and pull them out, so they get shredded by my ground AA. There's a lot of small tricks like that, but the planes are a little wonky at first. So when you like learn all their little wonkiness and use it to your advantage, I mean, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be one of the things that I've been learning about the micro in this game is that the units move differently, and so I think it's a matter of finding which ones you can control effectively, which ones feel good in your hands, and going from there. One thing I've noticed that Heathen's been doing a great job of is microing away from these bombs, the bomb drops from that heavy bomber. Seems like it's pretty easy, even with his Tiger tanks.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic how the draw line for the medium bomber is so short, and if you don't draw a straight line, the bombs don't really fully go off. There's another you can draw like a U, but that's be a perfect U if you wanted to have a more wider range. But I mean, usually players with the medium bomber just draw a short straight line, and players I mean, they have to the medium bomber when it comes in, it goes through that straight path, so it's pretty easy to guess where to dodge.
Yeah, it's not
So
exactly a
my
fast unit.
recommendation basically is try to learn the medium bomber's U-shape bombing run, and even then, it's not guaranteed to drop all its bombs, but you have a much wider range of the AOE, which the bombs do AOE. So even if you don't fully get all the bombs under that, if you have a wider range instead of the straight line, you're more likely to get a lot more damage off from the medium bomber.
I can say this is probably one of the longest games I have personally watched, which is probably an indication of my skills level right now. I feel like I always die so early, and now we're sort of into this mid-late game where we have these armies getting massed up. You know, you have a ton of air units getting stockpiled over the base of Gnuman, prepping out to send them, or maybe just defending his main base there. But at the same time, Heathen has also put up a couple of fighters, and he's managed to barely maintain control of all of these airdrops. He nearly lost one earlier and had to battle over, I think, the last 2 where he's just scraped by and grabbed them. But
Yeah, it's pretty funny that he's actually setting giant tiger tanks on these drop locations just to sort of make sure that he will get that extra golden flux, because Heathen, I mean, he always talks about how he feels like he controls the game, but he has trouble finishing. And we're kind of seeing that here. I mean, we see him having all these high tier units out, but he's not been able to effectively even take down the last towers onto Gnuman's base. So, I mean, I've had games against Heathen that lasted like 70 minutes long, so this is nothing yet.
All right, we'll strap in. We'll buckle up. Prepare for any and all options. It is the final map of the series. Heathen has been putting on a pretty good show here. Maps have been pretty quick. The first 2 going to Heathen in under 10 minutes, both of them, I believe. Actually, the second one, I think, was 11. Just got extended a bit longer than 10, but definitely some. One of the. I think that first map was a bit of a stomp, and I was worried that the series itself would sort of end up like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. I understand that Gnuman, he loves the infantry divisions, especially Simmons. Just purely like he likes to. He just enjoys the Zerg rush of infantry, but Simmons is just not. It's not going to do it against Heathen. I mean, Heathen knows what he's doing. He knows Simmons is garbage. He's going to take advantage of it. Whereas in this game, we have an air division versus a ground division that can both. I mean, if the ground division gets to the base, it's going to do damage, but the air division here is good at stopping the ground units from getting to your base. So we're going to have, this stalemate's more likely to happen than in previous games.
Getting a little bit of a push, too, coming out of Gnuman. His troop trucks working out, and he's got a ton of units here peppering away on these base towers. He's actually doing more work to the base towers than Heathen is just by having this lane presence, and it's been an issue pretty much the entire game. Heathen's been trying to deal with this excess amount of units, and I think the proper response is just to try and plant some troop trucks of his own. I think he has finally done that. I don't know. It might be too late. He's already lost nearly all of his towers. He only has one left.
Yeah, this is not good. If you're playing against Ritter, as long as Gnuman knows, if he sends the medium bomber straight to the AA, you can take out all the AA per bomber, maybe even 2 AA if you get micro them luckily enough, I guess you can say, because once you take out the AA, I mean, Gnuman can just flood their base with like fighters and henschels. There's really nothing you can do. So I'm kind of hoping we see that just because of how silly it looks when you have enemy flying units all over above your base, but we'll see if
You can have him
Gnuman
attack the
knows
base
that.
too, can't you?
Oh yeah, you definitely can. You have potentials like just slowly poke at your base, but won't do too much. But it'll still be funny if we can see that happening.
Control has shifted though. Heathen has been on that front line for a while of Gnuman, but Gnuman was massing units, and now we see 2 bombers out. So we may see that artillery, the AA units starting to get targeted here pretty soon. Now is the time to move those in, right? Because you can force Heathen to spend cash on anti-air.
Yeah, but it looks like Gnuman, I think if I'm correct, he might be stacking his medium bombers and doing similar to what I said he might do. He might send them in pretty soon. Maybe go for I hope the base AA, because that's the way to go. But it looks like he's actually just sending it for the units in the middle, which I don't personally think is the play as Ritter. He's might get a chance to take out this ground AA units, but most likely not. We already discussed how easy it is to dodge these AA bursts, but you know what cannot dodge a medium bomber's bombing run is a stationary base AA unit.
Absolutely, and we see the answer for these heavy bombers is a couple of fighters coming out from Heathen, and we have a bit of an air battle now, a little micro going on between both players as they try and take control of the sky. Gnuman has moved his whole army out here to defend these bombers, and it is hard work for Heathen to get control of the air again. He keeps sending out plane after plane. I don't know if that's the right answer, though. What do you do now? There's so many units in the sky.
I don't think sending air units against Gnuman is the play here. I mean, we can already see that Gnuman did just kind of won. He has all these air units flying above. Heathen does not have the money worth to spend to take them out from the air. Speaking money, I mean, we are seeing a crate drop in the middle. Yep. So we'll see probably who gets that.
I think that might be the first crate Gnuman has gotten his hands on. He's gotten close to a couple. Maybe he had one in the north in early game. But it's been a while since he's gotten one, and so definitely a nice boost in economy right when he needs it as he's making the push onto the base of Heathen. There's so much lane. He's had such consistent lane presence. He hasn't really had to worry about putting artillery units or any tank units up here to support his push. He is now finally sending in some tanks to support it, and maybe that'll be what he needs to push him over just a little bit. Here comes the bombing runs onto the anti-air right over the top of it. Does get one. You think that's a worthy trade, 1-for-1?
Yes, I do. I think if you're air-focused division, even taking out the front 2 and just sending the planes in with medium bombers being the suicide bombers, it's definitely worth. He is building another one. It's sending it around the side, I guess, for more sneak value, but I think it's pretty hard for Heathen to come back from this.
You realize they're firing on our base, don't you?
And yeah, the push is here. The attack underway. Heathen finally taking some base damage as those tanks worked their way down that lane. Trying to answer back with some Tigers, putting out some anti-air to make up for the lack of anti-air he now has on this corner. Got a ton of troop trucks out. Super vulnerable to some plane snipes right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Gnuman is going for that side one in the back instead of the other front one, but I guess he wants to send all his planes through the side. But I don't like that tactic because there is still that middle behind AA that a lot of players don't even notice is still there.
Yeah.
So even if you send planes to the side, there's still that one you have to worry about.
He does have pretty much full control of that corner, though. If he micros his units just over in this side, he can take out all of those troop tucks pretty efficiently, I would think, without really taking much damage at all, especially with his Tankles. What are they called? Did I say that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this is I don't see a way for Heathen to come back. I mean, we're just gonna keep seeing medium bomber trades for the base AA, and then once all of them are down, which looks like is what I assume is what Gnuman is actually shooting for, is all of them to be down and just having the swarm above Heathen's base where he can't do anything except send out ground AA fighters and just die to any ground units that Gnuman might actually eventually send over there. But we're gonna see Heathen's base is taking damage.
Heathen is scraping back a little bit here. He sent out a bit of a air barrage into the center. He managed to take out a couple of fighters. Gnuman quickly restocked those fighters in the center, though, and he's now trying to micro them away from the ground air, which is doing some work. And I think Heathen has stopped the bleeding for now. He's now trying to make his push. Maybe a couple more troop trucks to get lane presence would help, but he's going to keep throwing out those walking Stukas, and he's going to rely on those Tigers to push up the lane.
I think this is just a last-ditch effort from Heathen at this point. I think he knows it's very bleak. He can just keep sending out things that are already less than half health from bombing runs down the lanes, but all they'll do is just allow his infantry to push a little bit to these towers. They'll just melt them eventually.
Yeah, he'll just run into the same issues he was having earlier, where he couldn't really send those heavy. He had so much control over the map and wasn't pushing towers. So you're right. Even now, the odds of that happening are even lower because there are these tanks on the high ground, which he can flank if he wants to. He has a few artillery back at his base and pretty much full air control over this entire map.
Yeah, it's pretty confusing to me. He has 6 fighters, but okay, he finally spun out a Henschel, so I'm just assuming that Heathen is still targeting straight for the Henschels with his fighters that he's building. He is having a couple fly over his base. Maybe that's for purely defensive purposes. If medium bombers come for the other base AA, I don't think Heathen wants that to happen, so he is going to have these fighters float above his base just to have more of a deterrent for any suicide AA ground runs.
A nuke definitely an option to sort of try and shake up that defense, as chat suggested, but you can micro away from those, and he's at full cash. A bit of a I feel like that's kind of a sign of being maybe overwhelmed, is that when you hear that that ding going in your ear, letting you know, hey, you haven't been utilizing your income.
Yeah, I mean, I think though nukes, even though like there are uses for times like this where a nuke, even if it doesn't take any units down, it'll make the player force the units out of their base, and a lot of them times they'll get melted down by infantry because they sent out troop trucks out of their small base. Which on Kleinstadt, one of the smaller bases actually, I mean, 2 nuke AOEs kind of cover the entire base. So I feel like a lot of players will try to send units panic outside their base rather than to the other side generally. So I think if you time a nuke at the right time, even if it doesn't get units, it might be still value just to have that panic and stop the defenses from firing, stopping artillery from firing if they're in your base defensively firing, and all that good stuff.
We're now in a bit of a stalling pattern. 30 minutes into map number 3. I don't think we've had an airdrop in a bit, so I imagine they'll be competing for that shortly. And we do start seeing more bombers coming in from Gnuman now that he has air control once again. I just feel like the Tiger investment isn't really paying off for Heathen that well. It's keeping him in it, but whenever he gets, past the halfway point with those Tigers, he just doesn't seem to make good use of them.
Yeah, I think the later the game goes on, the harder it is for Wolf to finish because I think Wolf is kind of like a rush unit or a rush division where you get these strong, high-powered ground units out, and you try to send them out to the enemy base as fast as you can. But once the enemy has their higher tier units unlocked and starts building up their defenses with infantry and has a lot more money to handle defenses, I think it's just harder for Wolf in general.
I like the artillery move here to try and get lane presence, using this high ground, using the cover of the buildings to sort of lob rounds over. I feel like if he... at this point, I feel like the Stutkos are where you want to be investing in if you want artillery, right? Not your single artillery units, or do you find value in those cheaper tier 3s?
I don't find value in them at all right now, and I actually don't know what they're doing on this field. I think they should be purely like maybe they were defensive at one point, but they got out. But I really don't see the point of them out here when for like what, like $4 more a walking Stuka can be spawned. Yeah, that's definitely not worth it.
Yeah, the mobility you get with that artillery is easily worth the extra cash investment. And I think I mean I would say the obviously the damage output a bit thicker as well.
I mean, yeah, you have the mobility, you have the fact that you can fire while moving, which is like just makes the unit already like 10 times better than the basic artillery. They're much faster. They don't have to set up to fire or anything like that. But I mean, I don't know. I don't really get it. Maybe there's something I'm not understanding here. I think they also take like what 3 shots from henschels to die. And I think artillery or walking Stuka trucks take quite a bit more. So I don't really get it.
And yeah, this is something pointed out by chat. Shinobi has mentioned 9 troop trucks up now for Gnuman. You're saying 4 is your limit. Well, he's doubled that and then some to try and.
You can
is there a limit?
See what it's. The limit. There's not a limit, but there's a limit to how many infantry can spawn. He's actually like only like 25 away from that point. Well, now he's like less than that, but he's still not hitting his limit. But I mean, his infantry are not really doing that much, in my opinion, right now, compared to what having. If he's spending all of that money instead on like more fighters or more bombers or something, it just feels so much better.
Well, he's taken out the AA on the sides. I feel like playing games by focusing your fighters on the heavies or this and that isn't really where he needs to be. He could be sort of harassing the base right now, couldn't he?
I just think I want to see more medium bombers come out and taking out base AA.
Yeah.
I mean, reminder, these are basic or not artillery, basic infantry. If Heathen has defensive strays all over that lane that he is getting overrun by infantry, they'll just melt. They're never gonna get in the base no matter what. They are not true plane infantry that are a little bit stronger health, a little bit stronger damage. They're not bazooka troopers. They're little useless guys, man.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything. Stop buying them. Build more planes. Do it.
We'll see, but we're kind of getting into that situation where air control isn't really all Gnuman's. Whoa.
Yeah.
The game just paused for you?
I thought you were overmatched, but
my game
opponent left
did
match.
not pause.
Commander. You are much better at this than I expected.
Heathen DC'd?
Did
No,
he?
no.
No, it was Gnuman instead. Yeah, he may have crashed from all the infantry that kept falling over in such a short period of time.
I don't think I have an option to exit out of this window either into the... Come on, get me over there. I'll assault that 4 out. It's all good. Week one tech issues as we solve them. Well, I'm looking forward to the caster updates, man. It's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be some good stuff coming down the pipe. What are your thoughts, though? What do you think? Do we? I'm not sure what the protocol is. I'm sure we probably start up another map. Do you want to spectate that one as well, or do you want to wrap up the series off of that? Up to you.
Let me check one thing real quick.
We'll let Brad hash out the logistics of it, while I sit here and entertain with my beautiful face. You're looking so sad, Brad. It's okay, bud. We'll get back into the game. Don't be sad.
Yeah, I'm willing to cast another.
Okay.
Like, I have no problem. I think Heathen though. Did he have a game after this one?
Oh, yeah, he did in like 15 minutes, 12 minutes. I'm sure Naoko is flexible about when he can start, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't want him to be able to missed that.
That also, we don't, we're not supposed to replay either. The way that the rulings usually work in VR Master League is if you have a disconnect so late into a game, it's just what happens. You know, it's bugs occur in VR. You know, I think.
Have we heard from Gnuman? Yeah.
I think if both players agree, maybe you can replay it. But I'm pretty sure if you crash or if a bug happens like that.
I mean, if both players agree, they can do it. I don't think
Yeah.
we're worried about
Yeah, I agree.
doing it right away or casting that match. But yeah, his computer shut off. So.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. But like I said, I'm curious on Naoko's opinion of the. I mean, I've been seeing him play Ritter quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's his main. He plays it very interesting. I've learned a lot. I learned a lot actually by watching how he plays Ritter. I'm curious what his stance was on that game, especially in regards to the troop trucks. He wants to talk about that in chat.
I think Gnuman was streaming. Let's pop over to his channel. Is offline. Well, wait here and see what happened. It looks like Newman's not too bent out of shape about it, but
Yeah, it looks like he wants to do.
Heathen is up for her.
Just wants to give it.
Yeah, I think Newman's fine conceding that loss. And sometimes that's how it goes. You know, you can't avoid tech difficulties on these online situations.
Yep, for sure.
It looks like Naoko voting in with his opinion there, so he didn't have enough dudes to pepper out units that were spawning. Needed more planes. That's exactly what you were recommending. A bit of a heavier plane support. I mean, he had it. He had the game in his hands, you know? He really...
I just don't understand how Wolf, multiple times in that game, was able to outplay Ritter. That's my biggest issue that game. So.
I think they'll probably end up playing that third map again after Naoko plays Heathenist. Are we going to stick around for that, or are you dipping out?
I think I'm going to dip out as caster tonight.
Okay. I agree.
If anyone streams it, I'm going to watch it.
Absolutely. I think both Heathen and Naoko are streamers. If you do want to catch their streams, head on over to vrmasterleague.com/final assault. Head on over to the matches link, and you'll see all of these scheduled matches for the week. You can see who's casting them and on what channels. There's also some handy links on there that you can click, some little knobs and whistles. If you click match page, next to the match, it'll give you all the information, what the players' ranks are, what their history is. If anybody has submitted match highlights, they show up here as well. And there's also little icons underneath the player. It says stream. You can click those and it'll direct you to each player's stream. So if you ever want to see if anybody's streaming a game, if you ever want to get caught up on the Final Assault action, you want to follow the Twitter, you want to join the Reddit, you want to join the Discord, all the links are on that website. So head on over to vrmasterleague.com/final assault. That'll be your one-stop shop for Master League info. And I think we will wrap it up for the afternoon there. I'm gonna also call it a day for casting. I think I want to get some playing in myself after watching some of these exciting matches. Trying out some new strats that I've learned from Brad, some new tips and tricks. Brad, do you have anything else before we wrap it up?
It slightly worries me seeing 4 Ritter players in general. I don't like it. It scares me. It actually scares me because I don't know how to deal with it yet. So stop playing for
Here's the problem. When you play strong and you play well, you start to create a thing called a meta. Okay, and once metas start to evolve, then everybody does the thing that works well. Okay, so I'm just saying.
I want everyone
prepare
to
yourself.
A little puny ground division so I can just wipe them out with P38. Stop it!
Yeah. This is what the Master League does. It breeds the competition. It creates better players. I love it. looking forward to casting some more matches in the future, and they will be here on this channel. I think Bradley's got one scheduled for tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Take a look at the matches page like I was advertising.
Okay,
Yes, he is. Maybe I'll join you on that one. Silent Knight and Photo Engineer. Should be an exciting one.
Yeah, it should be. I feel like I think they played each other. I think they said they're both pretty good against each other. So I'm hoping. I like the more balanced matches.
Oh yeah, yeah. That final map was fun to watch. There's definitely a bit of a back and forth going on there. Some good micro on both sides and some good plane battles. I look forward to seeing more of that. And I think I will join you tomorrow since you don't have a co-caster. So if you want more action, tune in tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time, PDT, where there'll be more VR Master League action. Thank you for tuning in. That is it for us. My name is NightFiree with 2 E's. My co-caster, sadly, it's Bradley. And we'll see you later.
Bye.